Hi. Have you ever thought that your house was haunted? Have you ever worried about coming home and thinking that there's more going on than what should be? Do your kids ever go, I don't want to go to bed, Mummy, there's somebody in my cupboard? Well, tonight we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the different things and reasons why that can happen and some of the things we can do to change it. And then we're also going to be talking about raising our vibration, which all sort of comes part and parcel. So welcome to Joyous Earth Spirit Talks. Tonight we've got two amazing guests. The first one is Elizabeth Bratcher, and she is a spiritual medium and a trance healer. So she's going to be in the first part of our talk tonight. Any questions? Make sure you put them down below because we can see them as they come up. And I'm going to introduce Lisa now. Sorry, Lisa. Lisa's our second guest. That's Lisa Bowen, and she just popped up there. So I'm going to introduce Elizabeth now. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been so excited to talk to you all day. Been
I
getting
am
lots of
too.
questions.
Absolutely excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So would you like to introduce yourself and what you do? Give us a bit of a rundown.
Beautiful. So my name's Elizabeth Bratcher and I am a psychic medium. And so I've been a psychic medium professionally for about 6 years now. But mediumship is something that's always been a part of my life. I grew up with little spirits walking through my room at night time and freaking me out and doing all that kind of stuff. Working with my mum as a cleaner, doing clubs and things like that as a kid as well. That those places used to be riddled with spirit, and so it'd be quite often you'd be vacuuming and there's the old manager walking around the corner and all those kind of things. So that was my basic kind of introduction to spirit. And it really moved on to premonitions and things like that when I was a young teenager. And in fact, some of those premonitions kept me out of danger. As we
Oh,
do with
wow. Okay.
beg your pardon?
Oh, I just said, yeah, wow, that's awesome. Like, what kind of things happened?
So my absolutely standout one was I was in year 7 at high school and I had a dream that I was walking to school and a man come up behind me on a bike. And the old spiky things that you pick up paper with, in the park in the old days there, he had one of those with him and he come up beside me on his bike and he said to me, "Aren't you going to school today, love?" And I went, "Yeah." And he rode up the road and he come back and he's got this big picker in his hand and he's like, "You better run, I'm going to kill you." And I
Wow.
absolutely, pooed my pants in my dream and I've run down the road and dropped my school bag and ran into the school. And didn't think too much of the dream. It alerted me, but I didn't think too much of it. 2 days later, I'm walking to school and a man comes up beside me on a bike and he's got one of these picker things. And he says, "Aren't you going to school today, love?" And it happened
So
exactly
it was literally the same thing.
literally the same thing. The only difference that was in there was that I didn't drop my school bag. But when I was running, I knew that's when I had dropped my school bag. But I was like, no, I'm keeping hold of it. And literally, moment for moment, it happened exactly the same. And I was aware, I
Getting
guess, in that
chills.
little way. And it was a good outcome. I got away and nothing happened. So just so everybody knows, it was fantastic. But as a young kid, after that, every time I'd have a dream that had, a little bit of fright to it, I was like on alert for a couple of days. But I got to learn to look for the difference of reality and fantasy. So, if I was on a bus and it rode up a mountain backwards, I know that that dream was not real, and so I didn't have to worry too much. And yeah, and my dreams very much now of, that deja vu kind of feeling that we all have.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely my biggest first experience when it come to visions. But interestingly enough, I got my first visions around that age too, about what I'm doing now, because I was about 10 years old standing in my doorway, and I remember I was told at around 40 years old I was going to adopt, which I did. And then I got told that my life was going to change. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, I thought that it meant that my life was going to end at 40, because they went, "That's it, it's going to end at 40." But it meant rebirth. It meant that, that new life and those new lessons. And I was so grateful when I learnt that. But also showed me a big vision of standing in front of people talking. So, all of that's coming to fruition as well, which is really nice.
Tonight.
Yeah, moving forward. to now, I work professionally as a psychic medium. I'm very passionate about women's empowerment work, but I love healing work as well. I'm really drawn to energy. And so I've studied, I'm a Reiki master, but I say that I'm a trance healer because I love to bring in my shamanic practices as well with my trance healing. My spirit guides work really closely. Your spirit
What's
guides
a
will come.
trance healer?
So a trance healer is somebody who is an energy, provides healing. So I'm a Reiki master, okay? So I will work in that basic format of Reiki. But because I do trance work as well, so that's where I'll allow myself to go into a deep relaxation, and I allow spirit and my guides to come in and channel. And so for me, when I give a healing, it's a very visual experience. They will take me through the body and what they want to work on and what they feel, needs some energy and some real realignment. And I really love it because for me, it goes just that little bit deeper than the Reiki healing it's a spiritual. It's, I get my spirit guide come in and they use the rattles and it's a real birth ritual. It's sometimes it's really deep and it's just,
So
it's
do
really
you use the rattles, or do they just in your vision use
in my
them?
vision. They use them. I am currently at the moment being guided to build my own little tool set, and so it's really nice when I go out in the bush every now and then. I'm a big bush person and I go a lot to meditate. I recently just got my big staff, my big ceremonial staff, and I've carried this big stick home because they're like, yep, this is the one that you're going to make for that. So it's something that's very guided by spirit, and it's something that I'm constantly developing. So being able to bring in my own tools is I guess that little bit of a next step up. And I've had such positive feedback from my clients, and when you've got a client that sits there and says, last week when I come to you, I felt like I wasn't meant to be in this world, and this week I do. And you played a part in that, and it's not me, it's spirit and it's them. That's just amazing. It really is a massive part of what fulfills me in my work. So I do the healing, but I also do readings. I love doing readings. So I work very closely with men and women, but mostly women. And I'm all about empowerment and, showing you that you can find your dreams, find your purpose, and all of those kind of little bits and pieces, and clearing the energy out of the blocks in life.
Yeah.
House clearing is something that I get called on doing as well. And that's one of those things, I don't advertise it, but people seem to find you, and you'll get that phone call. And that's something that I really love. That's a part of my work that I do just from my heart, and I'll go in and I'll help families. And sometimes you've got to go back 2 or 3 times, but it's absolutely something that, I'm quite passionate about as well.
So, coming into house clearing, what do people come to you with?
That general initial phone call is either around they're hearing things in the house or the children a lot. It's generally the children that will be affected the most because, they get scared, they feel the energy, those type of things. And so I'll get that phone call about my son doesn't want to sleep in their room anymore, or, my partner doesn't want to sleep in the house anymore, there's noises. And so that's the general initial kind of contact that they'll make because they're not really sure what's going on, and they don't want to sound too weird. And I'm like, no.
And what's the first thing that you tell them?
So the first thing that I absolutely tell them is that they have ability to control and to take some charge in the situation that's going on here, because it might be a matter of a couple of days before I can get there. And, sometimes you've got people who are literally freaking out. And so being able to empower them with some of their own things like sending light to the house and grounding themselves and all those kind of little bits and pieces. Explain to them a little bit about what I do and how I do it. And I really strongly encourage them to participate because it's their home. And I always let them know, I've got to be in your bedroom and I've got to be in your bathroom, So I'm happy to teach you how to do it. But most often they'll go, no, it's fine, come with me. But I absolutely encourage them to participate so that way, once I've left, they've got that control and they can continue on, or they can just feel that little bit more strength.
And do you usually find, is there one particular kind of spirit that you find often, or is there many kinds of spirits? Do you believe in both?
probably categorize it into three main sections there. So you've got your spirit, who is our loved ones, you know, grandmothers, mothers, fathers, all those lovely, beautiful people that we've loved that have passed over. We'll often jump in and say hello. So we've got those kind of spirit that's there. We've also got our spirit, which I kind of call a little bit of a leech, and these spirits tend to sort of come around when things are perhaps not running so well. Maybe there's been a little bit of illness and that kind of thing. And it's, you know, if you picture all that negative energy, for want of a better word, around the house, to them it's kind of like a happy meal, you know. And so they're like, oh, sweet, I'm going to come and eat. And so they will hang around and they'll feed off the energy. And that's the kind of one that I usually find worries the children. And
What do you mean, feed off the energy? Like,
so,
that's curious what different people mean when they say that.
yeah, and it's one of those ones that I'm really mindful about how I describe it, because it is absolutely the most common that I find, but it's probably the most intimidating as well. So how it usually comes about is you find in just a corner of the room, or you know, in the hallway, there's one section of the house that you walk past and it kind of gives you the heebie jeebies, you know. It might give you goosebumps even. You kind of just feel like someone's watching you. And in my experience, what I've noticed as well is, even if the section's dark, it looks darker. So it's like literally just like a spirit that sits up in the corner of the room. And what I found is, if you picture them like that cheeky child, you know, that wants to get into everything and cause a little bit of mischief, and that's what they're there for. And you'll find that's where it is. The kids are not wanting to sleep. Their dreams are a little bit erratic. You know, we've got those little colds that we can't get rid of, or, you know, the energy in the house just doesn't feel right. It's not flowing right. And that's the kind of chaos that they make in the house. And so I call them a leech, because generally when they're around, there is other spirit around as well, because it's almost like that bully situation, you know. It's like, oh, well, I'm going to take advantage of the nice, not that they're evil spirit, because I don't necessarily feel that they are, they're just nuisance spirit, but they all take advantage of the nice spirit that's there, the vulnerable spirit, and they'll feed off their energy as well. So that's the most common that I find. And the third sort of spirit that I find as well is, you know, they've lived in the house for 50 years before you did, and it's
The
just, you know,
last house I had
old
this.
Mabel that's hanging
Yeah.
around, and you know, those type of things as well. And I guess it's worth mentioning the vibration of energy that's sometimes left as well. And it's something that's probably, I'll give it in the example of graveyards as opposed to houses, but it does happen. I'll picture an old pub, you know, an old pub that's been around for 100 years, that kind of feel. And quite often, oh, this building's haunted, but it's actually not. It's the vibration of the life that's been in there. It's like the memories imprint on the walls. You know,
Yeah.
it's when you walk into an old prison, it's like that. You can literally sit and just watch the prisoners. And so it's not
Like a
necessarily haunted.
storybook, almost, isn't it? It's a living storybook.
Absolutely, that's a beautiful way to describe it, actually. And so it's not actually spirit; it's just the vibration of, you know, life that has been there, especially if it is of a high emotion. And so it'll generally capture those painful moments, or those more ferocious kind of moments. And so that's why it feels so icky when we do feel it, you know.
Yeah. So when we were talking last week, you were saying that because there's lots of different ways of clearing your house. Like there's lots of, so a lot of people will smudge. That's probably the most common.
Absolutely.
There's lots of different things. I'll use bubbles. Like there's heaps
Yes.
of cool things that you can do. But what intrigued me about what you said was that you really like to empower people to be able to do it without tools.
Absolutely, because I absolutely do believe that sage has its place, and it's something that I still encompass, and it's something that I do use with house cleansing. But I also believe that you can walk around with the world's biggest stick of sage and smudge that house out to no end. But if you don't have the belief or the intention or the faith in what you're doing, it's not going to work. You know, cleansing a house is so much more than just walking around with a bit of sage and going, yeah, it's all cleansed. And that's where I do feel that empowering people without tools to keep their house cleansed is awesome, because you know, a cleanse is great. It's almost like that. The sage is good where, you know, every 6 months we might rip a room apart and do a good old spring clean. Beautiful. But in the meantime, let's keep the energy high with not needing those tools.
Yeah, with having an understanding of how they feel inside themselves, hey, how they are energetically.
Energy, yes, it's all about, because spirit is energy. Everything in life is a vibration. And I read something really great the other day about why we can't walk through walls, and it's there. Wall is a vibration, we're a vibration, but our vibration is too low to walk through the wall. Spirit's vibration just sits higher and can walk through that wall. We're all the same thing, we're just sitting at different levels of vibration.
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to actually introduce Lisa now. Are you ready, Lisa? I can see she's come on in. She's been waiting really patiently. So we're going to still keep talking with Elizabeth, but I just want everybody to say g'day. Just work out technology. So this is a beautiful Lisa Bowen, all the way from the UK. And Lisa is, hi Lisa.
Hi, gorgeous girl. How are you?
Good. Lisa is a spiritual coach. Is that right, Lisa?
Not specifically. However, I work primarily with energy. I call myself a mindset coach.
Okay.
But I'm loving what Elizabeth is saying, that everything is energy and spirit is just energy, and it's just different vibrations or different frequencies of energy. And yeah, I'm loving listening to you, Elizabeth. There's so many parallels. It's just beautiful.
Yes.
So, with what you were saying, Lisa, about being able to do it without tools, and you were speaking about just before we came live about that one with the child and the policeman. Is that okay to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Elizabeth.
Yeah, no, I called on because I knew. So
I'm going, children and policemen. Oh,
sorry.
No, so one of my house cleansings that was there, and it turns out a little bit like that vibrational energy that we were talking about. So the gentleman of the house, the father, is actually a police officer in his work, and without giving any of their personal details away, what he does is involved in a lot of that sort of different types of police work. And so what happened was, when she actually called me, it was around her son, because he wasn't sleeping in his room. He was really alarmed. He felt like he could see things up on his toys, and there was just a really, she just couldn't place what was happening. And so when I went through the house, I did a nice cleanse through the house, and as I said to her, the energy was quite even through there. I said, there's nowhere in particular that's standing out to me. We're just going to give it a nice good cleanse. The closer that I got to her husband's kind of work gear and things like that, their energy started to shift. And it was really fortunate that he happened to come home through the process and was, happy to talk a little bit to me. And it very quickly became apparent where the energy was coming from. And so it wasn't necessarily that he was bringing spirit home with him, but absolutely at times when he had dealt with death, that there had been situations, but also that energy he was bringing home. And so I was able to talk to him about really cleansing himself before he come back. Even when he gets home and has that shower, to imagine that water's cleaning that energy off from the day, and, mentally really kind of leaving work at work. And he took that information on board, and it was really fantastic, because she rang me a week later and she went, he's slept in his room. He's been in his room for the last 2 nights. He's happy as Larry. My husband's really taken on board what's said, and he's actually feeling better as well. And it was really cool. It was fantastic. And it was great because it wasn't the house after all. It just needed to be a little bit more mindful of the energy that we were allowing to come into the house.
Yeah. Which I suppose, again, we were talking about this a bit last week, is your home's your sanctuary, isn't it? So spending that time, so cleaning isn't just about getting the dust out. Cleaning is also about spreading your love to the corners and making sure that your front door has got flowers. Like my front door's covered all up to my front door's covered in flowers, because every time I walk in, I love it. And it's not for anyone else, it's for me.
Yeah.
We were talking about that too, weren't we? I got this right now, Lisa, the other day, weren't we?
We were. Just talking about, how we affect the energy around us. you know, and how easy it is to create and shift to a different energy. And flowers definitely raise the energy. They're just a beautiful gift from nature. So you get a beautiful gift, then you feel good.
Well, that sort of brings into your specialty, isn't it? Is raising of energy and being able to assess yourself and understand where your energy actually is.
Yes, I think we tend to not realize just how much control we have over our energy, and we tend to assume that something has created that energy and we're impacted by somebody else's energy. And as long as we stay in that disempowered state, we really don't have a lot of choice to do anything about it. Now, I'm not quite sure how in depth you want me to go here, or whether you want to wait till Elizabeth has finished.
Well, I sort of figured that we'd have, like, both of you amazing women have about 20 minutes where we speak about you, and then we'll come together for the last 20 and answer some questions and just talk. Not really any real format, but just give you a chance to have, to be able to speak.
Yes, and what I'd love to do when it's my 20 minutes is to actually, if people are interested, is take them through that process. Which is a very simple process, just so powerful. It really is very powerful. So is
it a meditation or just a visualization?
No, it's not meditation. It's just people having to really just perhaps go a little bit into looking at a situation. We'll pick a specific situation or person who's pushing your buttons or causing problems that is affecting you, and where you sit in that and how you can control that instead of being controlled by it.
So that can include a house, like how Elizabeth was talking about those energies.
As Elizabeth has already said, everything is energy. And when we remember that, we actually come from a very empowered place. But as long as we're being controlled by other energy, then we're disempowered. And that is when, as Elizabeth said, then those spirits that are perhaps a little bit troublesome will tap in, because, as she said, it's a happy meal. It's like, oh, let's get in here, because that's the vibration that they're on.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that. That's really
I hadn't until Elizabeth said that, and I went,
Yeah.
Got toddlers.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello. So Lisa, if you want to take us through that I'm up for that. How about you, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
So for everybody who wants to do this, and choice is yours, I can perhaps send through something a little bit later on that you can disseminate if people are interested to learn a little bit more about it. I did do a webinar on this, but I won't take that long to do it. So basically what happens, we've already determined that energy, there's different frequencies of energy. And when something happens, we immediately go to that energy. Whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, but we'll focus on perhaps energies that we don't want for the purpose of this. So what happens is that we take on board that energy and we cast out an energy net on the situation or the people in that situation. So what happens is everybody in that situation is caught in that energy net and therefore can't go anywhere else. So what happens is that we just get more and more of the same thing. And I'm sure you've seen this. Something goes wrong, and oh boy, the rest of your day goes wrong. Yeah, something goes right, the rest of your day goes right. It's because you are on that vibration. So what we really want to be able to do is to get ourselves out of that frequency. Because when we are free to get out of that, we can shift to a higher frequency. And generally we want to go to a higher one. We don't usually want to go to a lower one. Okay? So what happens when we do that is that we have then set the situation, the other energy, free as well. Now, whether that chooses to do anything is entirely up to it. I'm sure you're all aware that, if a bird is caged, you can open the door and the bird will stay in the cage rather than flying out for freedom. So you can't control that. However, when you shift your energy, you see things from such a different perspective. That energy no longer affects you. So you are controlling your energy and, ironically, the energy around you.
Yeah.
So what we have to be careful here is people will think that if they change, then that will make the other person or the situation change. That is not the goal. 9 times out of 10, that will happen. But that is not the goal. The intent there is manipulation. And as you've already spoken about, intent is crucial, because if the intention, with the smudging, whatever, if the intention isn't there, then you're not going to get the results that you want. So we have to really make sure that we're not worried about them. We just want to get ourselves out of this energy situation so that we can change it. Because I'm sure you're aware, on this situation, it just gets progressively worse.
Yeah, and as I was talking to Alicia last week, it's like when you're in that negative or not even negative, just that particular vibration, and that's the only thing that you're doing or feeling, experiencing, your options are limited. How I look at it, how I say, moving from your head into your heart, because your head, you're boxed, you've already been built. Your heart is unlimited and there's options. So I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it is. It's moving into the heart space, because the head, I don't know why humans were given this intelligence, because we haven't learned how to use it to the best of our ability, that's for sure. It's like having this flash computer that does everything, and we use about 10% of it.
That's what this is about. So we can start talking to each other and going, okay, we're not nuts, and we can do this, we can be better, we are better.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason things stay as they are or get worse is because the ego needs to be right. So when you decide you label something good or bad, the ego will do what it can to prove that you're right. It will show you example after example after example, which is why situations escalate.
Yeah. And why, if you're feeling poor, you continue to be poor and nothing works, and you sabotage yourself because your main vibration is poor, or I'm scared, or I have a ghost in the house, or I get it.
Yeah. And as Elizabeth said, ghosts are just another frequency of energy. And I'm with you, Elizabeth. I don't believe that there are evil spirits. I believe there are disempowered spirits. Who are caught in a frequency that isn't really where they want to be either.
Absolutely.
So yes, as I say, lots of similarities when you were talking. So so for this exercise, just take a moment and think of a situation or a person who is pushing your buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now just really look at that situation and look at the frequency it's on. Is that the frequency that you want to stay on? If it is, great. If it isn't, even better. Okay, so we have a look at the situation, and I want you just to take a few moments just to sit with it and look at your role within it. Because every situation has participants, and even if you're passive, there was a participation in this. So just take a minute, perhaps close your eyes if you want to, and just have a look and see if you can identify your role in that situation.
So that can just be a feeling. So when I go into it, because right now I've had a chest infection for 3 months, not bad, because I take heaps of good stuff, but when I feel into it, I don't necessarily get words, but I just feel resistance. Mm-hmm. So it can be a feeling, can't it?
Absolutely.
My participation is I'm in resistance.
And really, Kellie, when we're attuned, it all comes back to feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's coming from the heart, not from the head. We can rationalize things, which we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when we really get into the heart and we feel, okay, where am I feeling? What am I projecting to this? Because we have to be projecting something. That's just what we do.
Yeah.
Okay. So once you've done that, and you don't have to do that. I just find it easier to take responsibility when we do that, to see that our role in it and to accept that responsibility. So the most important part then is we're going to, what one of my clients termed lagging, we're going to write 5 things that we like, appreciate, or are grateful for about this situation or this person. So I'll give you a couple of minutes just to write down. You don't have to write 5 for each, just 5 things that you like, appreciate, or are grateful for.
About
Okay, now about this person or this situation. Now it could be, if for instance it's a relationship that really isn't anywhere near what it was and you're barely on speaking terms, you may need to go back to when you first got together. What did you like, appreciate, or grateful for about that person then? Okay, it could be if it's in a workplace, it's somebody that you really don't get on with, however they always do their job on time, which means you can do your job. Or even that if either work or partner, they're pretty horrible to you, but they're awesome with somebody else, maybe the kids or whatever. So really start, or it could just be you like the way they do their hair.
So with my lungs, it can be most of the time I can breathe easily. So it's finding that point of harmony. Is that right? Or say if someone's got a what they feel a spirit or a crappy energy in the house, they can be, well, actually that room has got great cupboards. Or is that what you mean?
Yeah, and it can be. I mean, I'll be honest, this isn't an area that I normally use this, but because it's energy, it can be used.
It's the same
anywhere. Yeah. So let's explore it, and that kind of feedback is awesome. Thank you. So yes, it is just, okay, so what is it about this? Another question that is really, really powerful, and it comes from Access Consciousness, is what is it about this that I'm not getting? So, you know, when it's for something like your chest or whatever, so what is it that you like or you appreciate or you're grateful for about this chest? Now, it could be this infection, it could be greater awareness. It could be that you've had to slow down a little bit, which has allowed you to do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah? There's always something in there. So like I said, we might have to dig.
But I instantly felt lightness there, whereas my head's going, no, no, but my body's going, yes.
Yes. And it's so important to learn to listen to your body. And this is what I found as a therapist. I've been a Bowen therapist for many years, is that most people aren't in tune. They don't listen to their body. The head is taking control. And the head is just like a horse rider. You know, the horse will do what the head tells it to until it decides it's going to do its own thing. And then no matter how good the rider is, it'll usually get unseated. So really connect with your body. And this is why it's always good to do these things with your eyes closed, to eliminate as many senses as possible. Okay, what is this? And maybe say, well, what am I feeling grateful for? What am I feeling? You know, rather than just saying, what am I? So maybe that's worth exploring. So once you've got those 5 things, how are we doing? Have we got a couple at least?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So what has happened now? What is different now from when we started this?
I'm in it.
Okay. How does it feel? On a vibration wise, is it a lighter, a heavier, the same?
Lighter, yeah. I'm interested a bit more, I suppose.
Okay. Cool. Anybody else got anything?
I think I'm looking at the situation with a more love point of view. There, for mine, it's a situation with a person, and I'm feeling not so resentful, I guess, towards that person.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that this is how we're cutting the net, is that good and bad however we label them. Of course, there is no good or bad. Everything is neutral until we label it. But once it's good or bad, they're in opposite directions. So you can only see one at a time. And generally, we're seeing the bad. All the good is behind us. You cannot have bad without good. You cannot have up without down. You cannot have black without white, hot without cold. So good and bad are always, always, always there, if you choose to label them good or bad. All right? But they are always there, but you cannot find them when you're looking in the bad corner. You have to turn around and look in the good corner. And that's what gratitude does. When you know, because you will find what you're looking for. If you're looking in the bad corner, you can only find more bad.
Yeah.
If you're looking in the good corner, you can only find more good. It's simple. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is working with the laws of the universe. However, it's one of these things that scientists have totally overlooked. So once you've started looking for the good, your vibration immediately shifts. It has to, because they're on different vibrations. It's almost like you have to take a lift to get from one to the other. Yeah? So as soon as you shift your vibration, what do you think happens to the vibration, the energy around you? It ripples out. And this is why I say 9 times out of 10, when you cut yourself free, then you will free them as well. But that's not your objective, okay? Because that's manipulation. The objective is to set yourself free. And again, we can use this with ghosts. We can use it with whatever. But we have to turn our focus around so that we're looking on a higher vibration, because we're not going to find what we want looking down here.
Yeah. Well, I suppose coming back to the it doesn't have to be about ghosts, it can be about spirits and that, but I think I was telling you this the other day about an old house that was being torn down that I went and helped do a clearing on, and there's another couple of people there doing it with me, and there's a lot going on in this house, a lot. So but one particular room caught my eye because I walked in and I saw a really scared young man underneath this desk. Is a spirit. And he was actually one of the few ones that I could almost physically see him. He was that tangible to me, but I saw him as scared. Whereas the other 2 people who came in, who I'd only met them that day, they walked into that room and were instantly terrified and saw him as a demon that needed to be vanquished. And I was like, oh, no, he's like this teenage kid or a dog stuck in a corner. Like, I just had such a different response to the same energy. And he didn't completely ignore me. I could still feel a very strong communication between him and I, but to them, he just lashed out. He just threw all of this energy at them because that's what they were expecting. And it was really one of those profound moments in my life that I really got to see that, what you were saying, you know, that transition between what you look at and how you look at it. We were looking at the same spirit. And I brought somebody else in who had no idea and no expectations. He was the man who got us there. And I said, have a look underneath here. Before any of us tell you what's there, what do you feel? And he goes, I feel fear. And I said, is it yours or is it something underneath there? And he's like, oh, it was a bit much for him, to be honest. But that's that same thing, isn't it? It's, you know, if you're coming at something and you're already feeling like it has to be this, or you don't move past what it initially presents itself as, that's what you get.
Absolutely, because we're projecting energy all the time, aren't we?
Have you found that with you, Elizabeth, like with different spirits and how?
As I was sitting giggling to myself, actually, because I can remember an experience back in April that was absolutely the same thing. we were dealing with an energy that was there. And for me, it was just, it had that element of sorrow and vulnerability and that kind of thing. And I happened to go do something, and I come back, and there's a couple of mediums up the back of this room drumming, trying to shut this portal to, and I just was like, really? And it was all just very, very different. It was very similar, I guess, to that situation there, where I was perceiving the emotions, whereas they were just perceiving it was this portal to hell. And I was just like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just one of the standout ones in that. But I mean, in a general context as well, it's much like, what it's like when you're in a shopping centre and you encounter somebody who's going off their head and angry at the teller and everything else like that. What you see is the anger, and you see the ferocity and how intimidating they are. But if you stop for a second, I bet my bottom dollar what you're actually going to find is a sadness, a vulnerability, and something that's really wrong for that person, and that's how you're seeing it expressed. And so Spirit's the same. Spirit's the same. Don't judge a book by its cover. As much as we say that around humans, it's the same with spirit as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I live by the saying that empowered people and spirits empower people and spirits. Disempowered people disempower people. So if somebody is disempowering somebody else, and we're talking energy here, so it can be in physical form or not. But if something is disempowering, it's because it's disempowered itself. So when we're able to empower that, then it will empower others, because that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So what do you both do, and have you experienced it? Like, have you ever come across ones where you don't feel like you're in a position to empower them, and have you asked for help? So we're talking about spirits.
Absolutely. I had in my home, actually, so it was my own home, where I'd had several acres. It was about 15 acres cleared next to me, and the land hadn't been touched ever because it used to be just a farmhouse, And so it was on land that is in a strong Aboriginal culture. And basically what happened is, once they kind of shifted this land as far as cleared it goes, my house had all sorts of things going on. And I remember one night sitting out in my back lounge room and literally watching clouds, black and white clouds, not heaps of them, but going through my kitchen. And I knew that they were representative of spirit, and I knew that the black and the white and, much like those little kind of niggly things were going on. It was something that I hadn't dealt with before, and it was absolutely with a different culture that I didn't have a lot of awareness of at the time. And so I went and actually sought some help from Aboriginal elders, and it was really beautiful. Spirit knows what's going on, because it was by coincidence. I'd actually sat one day in my house and just went, I'm going to find out what's happening here. And I just sat down and I just sort of said to the spirit, look, come and talk to me, because I was getting photos. Like, I'd take a selfie with my daughter and there'd be like orbs on my face, near my mouth. And I knew they were trying to get me to communicate. So I stopped and listened. Anyway, I had this whole family that was there in the house. And I said, by coincidence, 2 days later, I had a beautiful young lady come for a reading who happened to be the historian of her family and was an Aboriginal, and was able to give me so much information about what I was seeing, why I was seeing, who was there, and all those type of beautiful things. And it really helped me being able to cross them over and, send them over to the light, and that type of energy that was there. And so, it was, it was just a really, I guess, dramatic experience in the case of, I had a sinus for weeks, like 8, 9, 10 weeks, that I couldn't shake off. And, then my kids would get something, and it was their energy that was there, because I believe that it also brought in one of those leech kind of fellows that we were talking about. And, so in my house, it was just incredible. And once I cleared that energy, I didn't see any more clouds, and the illness cleared out of the house, and there was just a real shift in the energy as well. So
I was watching today a lady who's very good, and I actually have a lot of respect for her. but she doesn't believe that spirits need to be cleared or moved to the light. What does say, Lisa? What does your? I'll get back to you, Elizabeth, because I know you could have something awesome to say. But Lisa, what do you think about that?
Well, I haven't thought about it in that perspective.
I haven't thought today either.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, on some level I agree, because we do have different frequencies, and we will always have different frequencies. And just as TV channels, certain programs are on certain frequencies, certain channels, it doesn't make it right or wrong. I think perhaps what we need to be is more aware of it and notice and perhaps ask whether there is a desire from this energy to shift to a higher energy, because we're not going to get rid of those energies. Yeah. And it's not, I agree, it's not our place to get rid of them. It's, I guess, if anything, a role would be more to integrate so that everybody lives happily alongside each other. And that may require a shift in the energy around you, or it may require a shift of the energy inside you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It interests me with this because everybody pretty much says the same thing, but they explain it differently. So, Elizabeth, how do you feel about helping spirits move past change?
I agree that spirit, if you sit with a spirit and you direct them to the light and you give them the information, because sometimes spirit doesn't realize that family's waiting for them. They don't realize, that there's beautiful energy on the other side, things like that. So if you've provided that information to them and they come back and say to me, I don't want to cross over because I have something to do, then I would respect that. I'm going to say to you, I've never had a spirit that's not wanted to go. Okay. And I have a couple of little different opinions on that as well. I think that absolutely, if spirit wants to reside down here, I would 100% respect that. As I said, I'm yet to find, because the thing around it is a spirit can be in heaven, for want of a better word, and they can still come down to earth. Okay, yeah. Again, just defining the names and the labels for earth and heaven and that type of thing. That's it. They don't have to have not crossed over to be able to interact and to be a part of our community. Okay, so I do believe that they should be offered the opportunity at minimum, and as I said, I'm yet to find one that hasn't taken it. Now, I guess on a little bit of an emotional point of that is that sometimes I had an experience there, and it's probably a little bit heavy, but I want to share it there. I lost a friend last year, and she took her own life. And she came to me in spirit, and I was in the shower. I was literally having a shower, and there she is. And she didn't realise. And I said, what are you kind of hanging around for? She goes, I'm waiting to go to hell, basically. And I'm like, there is no hell. You're not going anywhere. I said, you can stand here for eternity if you want to, but you're never going to go down because it doesn't exist. I said, you've got your family on the other side, you've got all this and that. And I had to spend a bit of time with her, explaining to her that even though the way her life had ended was through her own responsibility, she still got to cross over. She still got to go to the light. She still got to have all that healing, and she didn't know. Okay, so that's where I do feel that we should provide, that we're here, they give us support, I give them support. That's what it's about, an exchange, And then I had an opportunity as well, one of the house cleansings, and I'd love to share that story, the whole story of that house cleanse. But in particular, well, I will. I'll explain to you, because the spirit that was in her house was actually there helping them. And she said, look, I love what he does for us, but I feel he deserves to cross over. I don't want to keep him here for us, and so we did cross him over. But what happened was I got a phone call, very similar thing, just the energy's a little bit off in the house. All those kind of little bits and pieces. Had organised to go over and visit. When I went over into the house and I had, started, what I realised is I was in a new house, and there was a very clear kind of border in the house where the energy shifted. And what I got to learn was that there was an old miner's cottage that used to be on the property. And it was, and definitely that energy in the back house is different to the front of the house. And so I very much tuned into an older gentleman that was there. I do believe that he would have had a little bit of drinking problems in life, that kind of thing, and then sort of remained alienated from his family, didn't get to really have a relationship with his grandchildren, those type of things. So when he's crossed over and he still has his energy in the house that he lived in, this beautiful family's moved in, that he can kind of take that protective grandfather role over. And at the time, that wasn't so obvious what he was doing, but what happened is once we actually moved him on, the story goes into the next day, I got a phone call, and it was from the wife, and she's saying that her husband found in their tumble dryer the next morning. She goes, I use the tumble dryer every day. Her wedding rings, which she had lost about 3 years ago. So there was her wedding ring, her engagement ring, sitting in the tumble dryer, along with a penny from 1955, just sitting in the tumble dryer. And it was, his way of saying, okay, goodbye, I'm going to go. What happened was, though, that he'd actually been keeping the house nice and clean for them, because once we shifted him, the house immediately got rattled with lots of troublesome energy. And I had to go back and just in a completely different capacity cleanse the house again. And there was 2 situations within that house that was very apparent that the emotion had something to do with it that was there. One was an area that somebody in the house spent a lot of time in, and it was an emotion of theirs that was there. And it was the same. There was another room that had a lot of energy that had to do with that person. And once I was able to kind of explain to them as well about why these 2 rooms in particular had this energy, it really helped as well shifting away the troublesome energy, because
they took ownership again.
Yeah, much like Lisa had said, it's where energy goes, energy flows. So while they're in that particular area and, maybe got time to contemplate on poor memories and things like that their spirit, again, is just going, yeah, beautiful, excellent. And so this older gentleman, as I said, had been keeping the house cleansed, and it really was a learning lesson for me that day. And I've learnt now, when a spirit sits with such love in a place there, that there's a good chance that you need to come and actually do like a secondary underneath. It's nice little clean out. And we spoke to her too, just about, shifting their own energies in the house as well, and some of the issues that come up in my energy that perhaps they could sort of sit with, that was going to help shift the energy in the house on a more permanent, wider basis. And yeah, so far so good. So, but the rings was awesome. Like, that's like gold, you get that phone call going, well. And it was funny.
Now, thank you for that, but now I've got like 50 more.
Yeah, well, when I left, she literally sent me photos, and she goes, when you left, she goes, the clouds over my house just shifted. And for her, it was a symbolism and things like that, so I'm not much into, it's shifting clouds and all that kind of thing there, but for her it was symbolic, and she goes, it was only over my house, and it was just really weird. So, it's those situations there where she said, I want him to go, because I said, look, this guy's harmless. The first time that I was there, I said, he's simply just enjoying being part of the family, la-di-da-di-da-di-da. And she said, yeah, I want him to go for his own sake. So, and as I said, I've spirit can come down when they need to. They can lower their vibration. It's much like how psychic works. I lift my vibration and they lower their vibration. And, the day that I cross a spirit over that disagrees and says I don't want to go, once they know what's there, I might change my opinion a little bit. But until then, yeah.
Well, I think that there's different. I know we were talking the other day, Lisa, like I'm really big. Anybody who knows me, I'm big on DNA work and ancestral healing. I love it. I love it. It's really good. I enjoy it, and it interests me a lot. We haven't got too much longer, but would you be okay to express how that is a past life or earlier this life healing that you did? Which is my point with it is that spirit can be like that old fella that Elizabeth was saying. It might not have been that family's ancestors, but it can be. It can be lineages, or it can be somebody completely different, but there's different spirits for different things. So whether it's not necessarily that they have to move to the light, and they can come here and be here and have already moved on. So So do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure I can recall which one you were talking
You're
about.
talking about, I think it was with your dad, actually.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, my father suicided when I was 9. And when I was around 36, which is around the age he was when he suicided, I went through all sorts of depression and lots of stuff. And the thought was, oh, it's hereditary and all that sort of stuff. And I went to do a past life regression, and we didn't do one. He came to me. And all of a sudden, a door opened and an elderly woman walked in. And I immediately said, oh, that's Aunt Mabel. Now, Aunt Mabel was my grandfather's sister, who I never met. She died before I was born. But I knew instinctively that's who it was. And she just came and she took him by the hand, and they just left together. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying very much about that, ready to go, and also with suicides who can often get stuck in that level. But it's just interesting listening to you talking and just realizing how much my own thoughts have changed around this whole thing. So I'm going to go and explore all this, because I now have a very different perspective, which certainly isn't time to explore here now. But yeah, it's very interesting, because a while back I would have said exactly as you've done, Elizabeth, and now I'm thinking, I don't know that that's true for me anymore.
Yeah,
so that's interesting. So I'll go and
it is, and that's the beautiful part about spiritualism is it's ever evolving, and if we always develop and we always stay open to opinions and ideas, and we take what works for us, we end up with something really beautiful at the end.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it's as long as that intention's with love and light, you know, we can all just stray off in our own little different ways, and it's going to result. Beautiful.
With this true, because if speaking of suicide, my best friend suicided 4 years ago. The night she died, I didn't think about it. I just held her. I went to the place they put her after they found her, and I just sat there. I didn't I've got kids, and we're all really close. And there's a lot of us at her house, and I just sat there for 3 days, and loved her. Just loved her. I didn't have any. I wasn't angry. I didn't have any. It wasn't in me at that moment to do that. And I just remember in my mind's eye, in my heart, she was in a dark place, and she was hugging her knees. So I would go and sit there when I wasn't feeding the kids or whatever. I would go and sit with her and hug her. It was just love. I don't think we talked. I just know that the person that she was that caused her to pass over, she wasn't my best friend anymore by that stage. She'd already got into a space where she wasn't her vibrant self anymore. So she got to a stage where she suicided. And then it was she died on the Wednesday night. On the Sunday, early Sunday morning, I got woken up by spirit, and they got me to walk outside, and they showed me her moving through a doorway into the arms of this really big sort of vibrating figure who was kind of red, which I later found out was her dad. And he took her, and then later on I had spirit come back and say she's moved over again. She'll come and see you tomorrow. And that was 3 weeks later. So she'd gone into this space of healing that first I feel like I helped her transition from that dark place she was in. So she wasn't on earth because she'd killed her body, but she wasn't in a space that was free and open because she wasn't in that space. And I just loved her. And then her dad came when she was ready and moved on. And then whatever healing that needed to be done in another space happened. And then later on she came and she said to me, Kellie, I can see and be with you and everybody else at the same time. I was like, and because I'm used to doing that for other people. I'm used to doing it for people I don't know. But this is my best friend. And it gets me emotional because it was like, it was her and she was still with me, but she wasn't in flesh. And so this was after she'd done some healing. And I remember I was at work, and when it hit her what she'd actually done in spirit, I think I shared that with her, and I actually fell to the floor, and it was the worst feeling I've ever had when she realized that she'd left 4 kids behind, 4 very little kids behind. And it literally floored me. But I feel like I earthed that pain in here, and I loved that pain, and I forgave it, and I let it go. And that was part of the earth healing. I don't know. I've not read that. That's just what happened with me. So all of us talking about these friends or family or people that have suicided, it's like each one's a slightly different or a different thing. Like, we're different people in life. So I suppose even that differences in spiritual understanding, it depends on what, as you were saying, Lisa, that vibrational level, the spirit and the person here on earth who's dealing with that spirit's in, and it's that beautiful communication that flows. So it's never going to be exactly the same, is it? Like, I mean, you can have parallels, but every communication, every relationship's different. I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't know. Does that ring true for either of you?
It does. And I feel very strongly that energy is energy. Okay, it's just on different frequencies. However, and I've often said this about myself, what you see here is this much of me. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
It's the bit of me that is required for you or for anybody to be able to get the message that I have to give. So I truly believe that energy, spirit, whatever you want to call it, ultimately it's all the same thing, will come to you in a form that is recognizable to you.
Yes. So the communication
will be different for everybody. Absolutely. Because initially I would see spirit. Okay. Now I just sense it. I know. I don't need to see it. I often talk with my mother-in-law, and for a long time I communicated with her as she was, as I remembered her. No longer. She's just energy. I just ask. I don't picture her anymore. I just know that she's there, and I've just called in that energy.
Yeah.
So I really believe that things will come to us. It's the same with religion and God and all these sorts of things, that will come to us in a way that we can understand, that we can relate to. And that'll be different for everybody. So there's no right or wrong. It's this incredible gift that we have of this world that we're living in different forms, will just present itself in a way that is what you need at that particular time.
Yeah.
So we will all have different perspectives, regardless of how far we are on our spiritual growth. Like, how do you grow in spirit? We are spirit. Spirit doesn't grow; it just is. But
it's how comfortable we are letting enough of our spirit here. It's not that we need to grow; it's a need that to allow, I suppose.
Absolutely. And I often say this to people: when we've lost somebody, we haven't lost them. Their energy is still here. That is not changed. That has not changed. Will not change. That energy is still here. So they just have to tap into them. Yeah. Just like when you're away on holiday, but you don't lose your mum and dad or your whoever. They're still there, and you still feel connected to them. So just because they're no longer in this physical body doesn't mean that they're not still here. They are. They're just not constrained in this physical body anymore. They're free.
Beautiful ladies, we've come to over an hour.
All right. Oh gosh,
I'm enjoying this. So, how, Elizabeth? What? I had questions I was going to ask both of you, but that hasn't happened. We've just gone really organic and just gone with the flow. But Elizabeth, what would you like to pass on? It can be specifically about having the power for yourself to clean your own house or whatever, but what from the heart now would you like to pass on for everybody that's watching now and maybe watching or will be watching in the future?
Beautiful. So what I'd like to pass on, I think, is something that we can do for ourselves in a daily basis, and also carry through to our homes and our houses as well. And you know, I think that if we wake up each day and we take a moment to just kind of connect ourselves. So for me, I imagine that as that root system that goes down into the earth. You know, I draw some energy up, I highlight my chakras open, and I just really take a few moments just to breathe, focus on my breath, you know, feel the air around me, maybe listen to nature, whatever it is that's going on. It doesn't have to go on for too long. It doesn't have to be anything special, but it just grounds you for the day. When you do that, find something beautiful. Find something beautiful. I'm all for a gratitude journal in that regard, and especially when we're talking about keeping our vibration high. I keep a gratitude journal and I write in there every day I'm grateful for. Another thing that I've started that I want to share, and I'm going to make this a revolution, is that everyone starts a I am amazing because journal. And so every day I write, I am amazing because I am kind. I'm amazing because I'm smart. And I have to think of 25 reasons why I'm awesome every single day. And that in itself will start to lift your vibration, you know. And so that's just things that we can do for ourselves. When we start to think about our house as well, keeping that same kind of ideal that's there. So if we feel like something needs to go a little bit astray in the house, when you're going to bed at night, imagine a big white dome around your house with the brightest white light that you can. This beautiful healing light. It goes under the earth, it goes over the house. Nothing without a good intent is allowed through that. And you can say that this is a house of love and light, and only things of love and light are allowed to be here. And so, you know, that in itself is just that nice protective dome. And if you feel that something is a little bit amiss in the house, if you do that for a week or so, I think you're going to find that there's an energy shift that's there. And, you know, and that's absolutely, like, just as a little bit of a starter kit there, that's what I would absolutely recommend.
With what you said then too, if you feel that there's something in your space that's off, but that you're daily connecting in and balancing yourself and coming inside, though you have more resilience or more in the tank to be able to deal with anything that's off.
Absolutely.
So they're not mutually exclusive. Like very much, I love everything that you said there, because it just that beautiful daily, I'm important enough, my home is important enough to actually give a shit and come in and feel and know that I'm empowered enough to be able to bring balance to my own life.
Part of my work, whether it's the reading or anything else like that, absolutely 95% of it always comes back to helping somebody find their self-worth. And, you know, different ways that they can do that, and reminding them. And as I said, like some of the feedback I've had of how incredible that energy shift is when you have someone emailing you saying, wow, my life has purpose all of a sudden, just because they've taken a few moments to remember that they're worth something. It gets me very excited. Absolutely excited. It really does.
And Lisa, what about you? If you could share something.
Yeah, we've obviously listened to my mind before I've had a chance to verbalize it. Absolutely, gratitude list. What I really recommend is doing one when you wake up, set your frequency for the day, and doing one when you go to bed. Very simply, because that will make sure that your subconscious mind goes to sleep on that higher vibration rather than that lower one of what didn't achieve whatever. But the one that I really want to do, which is part of the exercise, the lagging exercise that we did earlier on, is to send love to the person or situation. And generally that's can't do that. All right, and that's because you're empty, because you don't have a full tank. So what I recommend that you do is you take time every day and you fill your own love tank. And it can be done by gratitude, by I'm awesome. And it can just be doing by remembering something that just made you, you know, when you have your first baby, when you first fall in love, any of those things where you just went, oh, so delicious.
Oh, we lost her.
She's gone. Oh, hold on. We might be able to bring her back. All her energy just made it go, whoa, combust. No, hold on, Lisa. I'm going to bring you back up. Hi,
okay. So when we feel that delicious feeling, we usually blow the electronics technology. when we fill ourselves up with that every day, whatever way you choose, but I like to just imagine, go back to when my babies were born, or, something that was just that, you can't contain that feeling of love, and you're overflowing. Because when you're overflowing with love, you will affect everything around you. And that's what we want. We want a love full of world and peace and happiness. And it all starts with you. Yeah. So when you take that time to do that for yourself every day, we will affect the world. We will change the world in a generation.
Definitely. I suppose after tonight, not even after tonight, one of my biggest things is to do with both of these. There's some days where, even though I'm really usually loving and all of that, there's some days I'm just like, everyone can go to hell. I don't care, I don't like myself. I don't like you. On those days, and every other day, but especially on those days, I don't let that be my stop sign. That feeling, it's not a stop sign. It's a take a breath and give way. So changing, I've really taught myself. So when I had somebody on the table is where I started with this. I'd have someone on the table and I could see all of this stuff going on in their body. I could smell cancer. I could just stuff. And I'd be getting all this information. And I'm like, Spirit, I don't want to know this. I want to know how they can be happy. They don't come to me so I can tell them that they're going to die of lymphatic cancer. I don't want that job. I want the job of, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to live till you're 94 and you're going to have 80 grandkids. That was the job I wanted. So I chose it. So even in those faces of some really horrible things I've seen, and I've heard some really devastating where I thought I was strong until I've met these people. And in each of those moments, I don't let that be, I've really taught myself to not let that be a stop sign, and I've moved into the light. So now I'm a bit older, I've actually started to apply that to me. So I suppose what I'd like to share with everybody is just that simple understanding of, on those days where you don't feel like you can love everyone and you don't want to do a gratitude journal and you can't even imagine what light looks like, stop and take a breath. Smell some essential oils, go and have a look at some flowers. It's just, you don't have to do it by yourself all the time, but you don't also have to sit in it. So I suppose, again, that's what these conversations are about as well. So giving people, letting them realize those kind of things.
and those feelings are okay. We're human. And I'm a big believer in that the more emotions we feel, the more alive we are, which is the purpose of being here now. And too many people don't allow themselves to feel bad, so therefore they're not able to allow themselves to feel good, because remember, they're polarities.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that my bad, if that's what you want to label it, and I have done in the past, is actually just winter now. It's where I go to recharge. It's where I gather in all the nourishment I need to move into spring and summer, which I know is coming. So it's never a permanent place, but it's actually a beautiful place as long as I allow myself to acknowledge it being beautiful instead of fighting it or suppressing it.
Okay, well, we're at 15 minutes over. I could talk for another hour easily. I'd like to offer you both the chance anytime you want to come back on. I would love to have you.
I would love to. Yeah, absolutely love to.
So thank you so very, very much. Next week, we're going to, from what I can see so far, I think we're going to have, rather than some of us who work in the industry, I've got a few ladies who have just basically got stories or experiences, and they're not scary. Some of them, like one in particular, is phenomenal. And it's about spirit coming back and helping a little baby coming back and helping his siblings not be killed. Really cool story. So next week's a little bit different format, everybody. So please come back, and any questions during the week, if you have any questions for both of these amazing women, I'll make sure their information's up, and I'm sure that you can do you guys mind if anybody contacts you? And
Absolutely.
Not at all. I actually have, if anybody's interested, I have a group called Creating Your Life, which is looking at changing your vibration and following the self-confidence formula from Think and Grow Rich. And starting at the beginning of August, I've got a 5-day challenge, which is free for anybody to jump on. So
cool. Is that on Facebook?
Yeah, on Facebook. So it's called Creating Your Life, and there's a picture of me wakeboarding, because there's lots of creating your lives.
Great woman, I like that. Okay, if you pass that information on to me, I'll make sure that it goes with this, because this will go up on YouTube once I work out how to edit. Sorry, one thing at a time, I figure.
Yeah, well done. Well done for getting this far. I'm looking and thinking, oh, I need to do this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, even this week I was like going, I don't know, having doubts. So I'm like, Kellie, get over yourself. This is that. It's not a stop sign. This feeling. This is just a give way. Take a breath and go. This stuff is worth it, and I enjoy it. So I don't care if nobody else does.
It's fun.
And Elizabeth, thank you. Is there any way people can get in contact with you?
Yes, so I've got my Facebook page, which is Soulful Creations Spiritual and Wellbeing Centre, and you will find me on there, and you'll find loads of little bits and pieces that are on there. That's definitely my main format that is there. Otherwise, I've got my website as well, which is soulfulcreations.com.au.
Awesome. And everyone, I'm Joyous Earth, so I'm getting more and more stuff up there, and I'm all about giving you tools to be joyous and kind and happy here on earth, because we actually can. We don't have to be in this funk we've got ourselves into. We can do it, especially when we do it together.
We can.
Okay, beautiful ones. I will see you all next week, and thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Huge value.
Thank
okay,
you.
bye.
Bye.